Hello, everyone. Welcome to our interview with Miss Eugenia Chu. And I'm so excited because, as we always are talking about the importance of literacy and just why is it important not only to be able to encourage our students and our families and our kids to read, but also to hear the background behind a story and how it came to be. And so I'm always excited for this platform because we get an opportunity to get in the head of the author and what's their inspiration and all those good things. And so, again, as you're coming in, again, our interview is very conversational. So if you have questions for the author, or if you want to be able to pose any questions or leave comments, do those, and I'll make sure to show them during this time. And so, again, as you're coming in, share this. I think it's important for us not only to learn about just different stories, but also learning how we can support authors as well. And so before we get started into our interview questions, I first want to say welcome, Eugenia. It's been really, first of all, I'm excited because I actually get to see your face. It's like kind of in person, right? A lot of but this is awesome because I just look forward to learning as well with everyone who's watching. So as before we get into the questions, I would love just for you to introduce yourself. So tell everyone a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, my name is Eugenia Chu. I am an author of two books so far. Brandon Makes Jiaozi, which, so there you go, as a picture book. And Brandon Goes to Beijing, a chapter book. And I am Chinese American. Both of my parents were born in China. My father grew up in Hong Kong, and my mother grew up in Taiwan. And I still have relatives in, say, Beijing, Guangzhou, Hong Kong, and Taipei. As for me, I was born in the United States, born in New Jersey. I moved around a lot as a kid, but grew up mostly outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and St. Petersburg, Florida. I've also lived in or went to school in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New York, Washington, D.C. I spent a year, my gap year between college and law school in Taipei, Taiwan. And I spent a summer abroad in Shanghai. And now I live in Miami Beach with my husband and my son, Brandon.
Awesome. And so hearing all of that, which is exciting, like a whole whirlwind of all of those things. Yeah. But I just think it's encouraging to hear people's stories because then we get to see how it impacts their writing. And so I would love to hear what got you into this field of writing and becoming an author. Like, was it something you always aspired to do, or did it just kind of like, hey, maybe I should write a story? Like, what inspired you for your writings?
Well, I started writing. I didn't start writing until a few years after my son was born. I was never really, I was a lawyer, so I never really did much creative stuff. But then after my son was born, I just started writing little stories for him. Because at bedtime, we used to read a ton of books. So I was always looking for books and buying books. And the one type of book that I could never find were books in English, storybooks in English that had a little bit of Chinese culture and a little bit of Chinese language in them that would reinforce some Chinese, maybe even teach a little bit of vocabulary. The only books I could find that had any Chinese in them were straight translations with English on one side, Chinese on the other, or there were like ABC 1, 2, 3 type instructional books. And those, don't get me wrong, those books are great, and I bought them all. But it wasn't what I was really looking for. So I just started writing my own just for my son, just for fun. And back then, the thought of publishing never even crossed my mind. But that's how I started writing.
And so with that, I know you say you want to go more in depth. So does that also inspire the topics? Like, so what are like the main topics within those stories to go beyond just the ABCs?
Well, the stories I write about are really, since I started writing for my son, most of them are based on his experiences, things he loves, things that interest him, things I want to teach him. And so, for example, the first book that I wrote, this one, Brandon Makes Jiaozi. This is based on something that he loves to do with my mom, his grandma, who he calls Po Po. And every time my parents come to visit, my mother and Brandon, they get together and they make Chinese dumplings called jiaozi. And so the book is based on that with a little bit of fiction thrown in there. But I write stories like that. And the second book I wrote, the chapter book, is based on Brandon's trip to Beijing a few years ago. So I write those types of stories to bring in a little bit of Chinese culture, teach a little bit of language. And really, I write for him. And I'm writing for everybody, because I think it's important for kids to be able to see other cultures and maybe see other languages in a book, and just to pique their interest in new things and new ideas.
Yeah, so how does Brandon feel having 2 books written about him?
You know, when he was little, he thought it was so cool. Now that he's older, I think maybe he's like, oh, Mom, I would never say that. Or, oh, Mom, I was like a baby in that story. I'm not sure he quite appreciates as much now. Maybe when he's older, he'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
so my mom wrote these books for me and I'm the main subject.
Hey, right.
Oh, you know.
The reason I asked, because since we're during this time, I've always, I mean, now that I'm working a lot more with authors in schools, I'm like, you know what? I want to write a story. And so actually me and my son have been like putting together, he does a lot of drawing. And so he's been putting together like a comic book. And for me, similar to you, like I have a story in mind that I want to do a children's book with him being the central, character. And so I just think it's just important. One, like you said, he may not necessarily see the total value of it now, but it's like an honor. Like, wow, I actually have a children's book out there that talks about me. And but I think it's just important to build those kind of like legacy things for our kids, so they can see themselves. And most important, like you said, sharing content that is not always available out for the public, right? And I've interviewed a few other authors who the reason they wrote these stories is because there wasn't enough stories that represented their culture or represented their families. And so I think that there is a piece of education, regardless if you're a child or adult, because if I'm an adult reading, I'm going to be learning as well, right, about this culture. And so, yeah, that's really, really cool. So I know you said you started as a lawyer, so this whole idea of being an author wasn't there. So how about the publishing process? So was it difficult to publish? Were you like, okay, I'm going to do the traditional route? Did you choose self-publishing? Like, kind of tell us that story.
Okay, well, when I wrote the first story, I really had no clue. I had no idea what I was doing. And I sent it out to a million traditional publishers. And, I waited and waited, and I got a couple of rejections. I didn't hear back from some of them. I had no luck. But one editor did contact me, and she was like, I really like this story, but we can't publish it because there's not going to be a wide enough audience. It's too different. The Chinese throws it off. That's exactly why I wrote the book.
Exactly.
So then I started researching self-publishing, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. And it was really confusing for me. And so I ended up going with this hybrid publisher for the first book. And basically what they did was they put together the story. I wrote the story. My sister actually illustrated the first book.
Okay.
They just put it all together, and then they put it out on all the sales channels, but they didn't do anything else. They didn't do any marketing promotions or anything like that. So by the time my second book was written, I had learned a lot more about self-publishing. So then with new illustrator, Liza Su Chen, she helped me with the graphic design, putting it together, and then I went ahead and completely self-published the second book.
Awesome. So how long between those two books? Like, how long did it take you to write your books?
Well, the first book I wrote really fast because I had written it way back in the day, and then I just kind of added a little bit to it. So that book really, maybe an hour sat down, but it took me a long time to edit it, and then I spent a long time looking for an illustrator before my sister was like, "Hey, I want to do it." So that was a quick writing. But then my second book, it took a long time just because I only sat down and wrote when I felt inspired. So I'd start, and then sometimes a few months would go by, and I'm like, oh, and I write a little bit more, and then I let it write a little bit more. It really took me like a year to get that book completely written and edited. But then the book I'm working on now, Brandon Goes to Hong Kong, I had time during quarantine.
Right.
I just did my first draft of it. So that one, I started writing it probably last fall. And then I kind of sat on it for a while, and then quarantine hit, and I've been writing quite a bit. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So, in going along with that vein, what would you say? What are some of the influences that influence your writing?
Okay, well, the reason I started writing is for my son, but I think one of the big influences on why I write what I write probably is the way I grew up, my childhood, which my childhood was great, don't get me wrong, but I want my son to grow up a little bit differently. When I was little, my family, we were the only Chinese American, actually, we were the only minorities, period, in our neighborhood at my school. So in a sea of white faces, we really stood out.
Yeah, and where was this again?
This is when I was little, through my elementary schools outside of Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So where we lived, it was just no other minorities there. But I had a great childhood. My mom was really active in school in the PTA. So she made sure all the teachers knew us, all the staff, the principal, admin, make sure none of us were teased because we were different. So I had no issues in school. I had a lot of friends and I was happy. But I do remember when I was little wishing that, I wish I had blonde hair and blue eyes like all my friends and all the characters in the books and the movies and TV shows. And even though I had friends and I was happy, I had a good childhood, it really did affect my confidence and my self-esteem a little bit. And I don't want that for my son or for any kids. So I feel like if kids read these types of books where the character doesn't look like them, well, first of all, it's important for kids to see themselves in books so that they can get that confidence. Right, and bolster self-esteem by giving them a sense of affirmation about themselves and their culture. And I'm hoping that through my writing that they'll get that sense and they'll see that they're just the same, they're as good as and just the same as really everybody else. And all kids are yeah, and also I think all kids should see or should be exposed to diverse and multicultural books where the characters are different from themselves. So that if they look through the eyes of other kids who don't look like them, whether they're a different race or religion or nationality or handicap, they'll see really people, especially kids, they're all the same. They all like to play, they all like to laugh, they all like yummy food, and nobody likes to be left out or made to feel bad. So I feel like these types of books are really important. That's part of the reason why I write them. And I really want to get that out there.
Yeah, I love that point because I'm always sharing that with my son that I think whenever you're trying to introduce like something new, it's always a non-threatening way through a story, right? Is I think that just teaches our children that everyone has a story. Like someone behaves or the way they look or the way they behave, anything is connected to their story. And I think, like you said, you realize you have more in common than not. You know what I mean? Even topics that could be sensitive, like autism, right? I just bought my son a book and it's about the main character is actually autistic. And it really made a lot of sense for him because he goes to school with a few students who are autistic. But just reading the story, he was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, And so what happens is that we become more the same than different, you know what I mean? Because I'm afraid to understand, like, we all have things that make us unique. And so that doesn't mean that just because you're different, I can't connect to you. You know what I mean? And so I love the fact that you just brought that out, like us hearing each other's stories, regardless of ethnicity, religion, all those different things allow us to see how we have more in common than we have different. Yeah. So have you had, and you just sharing that it's not a lot of books out there. Did you have influences that impact your writing, or was it more so like wanting to create this kind of literature for my own child? Or do you have people that influence the way you write and it's like the reason why you write?
Well, I with other authors. I have them read my books now before I publish, and they give me a lot of tips, advice, insight, and it's been really great because I think they've made me a better writer, so I can express myself more clearly and more interesting.
Yeah.
So they really helped me out. But really, I feel like I'm creating something new the way I'm doing this. But it's still the same storytelling. So any advice I can get, I take. I try to absorb everything.
Awesome. So you heard me say I want to be a writer. I'm trying to be a future author, and I know people who are watching may or may not, be like, oh, I have that story on my heart or things I want to put together. So the same advice you were given, kind of think about maybe some lessons you've learned. What would be your advice to someone who hasn't got yet their first book out? Like, what would be, if you could give them 2 words of wisdom, like what would be 2 pieces of advice for upcoming authors?
Well, because you love it. Even if people encourage you, don't listen to them. Just do it because you love it and it makes you feel good. And even if you only get one person that really appreciates what you're doing, I consider that a success. I mean,
Yeah.
it's worth it. And then also start marketing. This is something I wish I had done. Start marketing before you actually published a book. You're already way ahead of me. I had no social media. I had no presence or anything like this. It didn't launch when I was overseas. I'm like, oh, my book is out. And I didn't have Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, anything back then. So I had just started all that up afterwards. So get all of that set up. Get your accounts set up. Tell everybody you know to tell everybody they know that a book's coming. Build some hype about it. I think that helps because then people know it's coming and they'll be looking for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you write a book and no one sees it. It's kind of sad, right?
So I know you say you have a book that you're working on now. And so I want to touch on that because I think that as a self-published, it's definitely different, right? Because it's like I'm saying I'm taking this leap of faith as a self-publisher. I'm marketing, I'm the everything. I'm the promoter, I'm the marketer, I'm all these things. And so what have been maybe some things that you have learned that helped when it comes to marketing in that arena?
Well, one thing I didn't realize, well, I have 2 books coming out. One is actually through a publisher, and then one I'm going to be self-publishing.
Okay.
I learned another piece of advice I would give to a new author is to join a bunch of author groups on social media. It's amazing. I've gotten so much help from other authors, and we're all trying to help each other out, even though people think in other professions we be competition. But in the writing world, we help each other. One of us is like, oh, look, another we're all doing it. So I think that really helps. And they all give advice if you have questions about, well, if I should publish in this format or this format, people will help and lay it all out. Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I've learned. Ask for help too. Ask for beta readers, ask people to read your book beforehand because there's going to be things that you miss. And people sometimes people come, hey, have you thought about putting this little twist in your story? That's a great idea.
Exactly.
Well, that makes your writing better.
I love it.
The publishing part, yeah, for sure. Just try to get a team together beforehand, and they can help you advertise or promote even beforehand. And then once your book is out, ask them to review your book, have their friends review your books. So it's a big networking almost and sharing.
Yeah, sharing resources. So with writing, is that it? Is there anything else that you aspire to do with your writing? Like, what's next?
Well, as Brandon's getting older, my books have kind of grown. I started with a picture book to a chapter book. The chapter book I'm working on now is a little bit longer of a chapter book. Maybe I'll try to do a little YA, young adult.
Okay.
And maybe you'll even do a grown-up book.
Right.
For now, I think I'm going to stick with children's books.
Awesome. Is this your full-time or is this just something that you do along with the career?
Well, I stopped working because it was just when Brandon was very, very young, just because I couldn't keep just going full focus on both. So I stopped working for a while. I became a stay-at-home mom, started writing. And now I was kind of doing this for fun, but now I'm focusing more on it.
Okay.
It's going to be my full-time job.
Awesome. So I'm excited because again, I want to support. I can't wait to learn more about your writings and your books as you just shared. And so I want you to kind of speak to, I'm going to put up best ways people can connect with you. So if you could share a little bit about your website, what they will learn, and just kind of what they have in store.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Also, if you want to hear more social media, if you guys want to keep in touch, email eugeniachu.com or eugeniachu.com is my email if you ever want to. Website, everything is actually on my website, so that's probably the best way to go. But on Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, Amazon. If you want to see on Amazon, Amazon.com/author/Eugenia Chu.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Eugenia. This has been awesome. I'm just excited. I don't know. Did you fill out the directory I'm putting together for different children book authors?
I think I filled it out a long time ago.
You know what? I might send you because I sent out a new one because to your point, I believe that we just need a directory that just directs us to all these different wonderful multicultural children's books. And so I'm putting that together on my site so that parents can be able to contact with published and self-published authors and be able to identify and learn more. And so definitely I'll make sure, if you haven't, I'll make sure we're connected with it. But I'm excited you all visit www.eugeniachu.com to learn more, all her social media handles, how to contact her and to purchase her wonderful writings. And I pray that you've been inspired by just simply, like she said, just sharing your story. I think especially when it comes to this platform, the reason I use it is because multicultural literature is something that's not big, and I believe it's growing. And the more people that share their stories, the more we're able to learn and see how we're more connected than we thought. And so I'm excited to continue learning more and building with you, Eugenia. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.